As you all know, 11 days ago, a Supreme Court draft ruling was leaked, which shows that a majority of justices at the time favor reversing the precedent set in Roe versus Wade and thereby allowing states to decide on the legality of abortion. Don't worry, the sermon is not political. It's Jewish. In a statement issued by the Union of Reform Judaism, Rabbi Marla Feldman, Women of Reform Judaism's executive director, writes, "The draft opinion in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization outlines a grim reality for abortion rights. It is an affront to our fundamental right to make our own decisions for our own bodies, lives, and futures." The CCAR, the Central Conference of American Rabbis, the rabbinic union all of your rabbinic clergy are proud members of, issued the following statement. Until the final moment of a Supreme Court decision, Reform rabbis will continue to advocate for the preservation of Roe versus Wade. The statement also noted the CCAR proudly participated in an amicus brief submitted to the Supreme Court in support of the respondent, Jackson Women's Health, and of reproductive freedom. But it's not just the Reform movement. The Rabbinical Assembly, representing conservative Judaism, issued a statement saying, "Reproductive freedom is again under assault, this time from the highest court in our nation. The Rabbinical Assembly, conservative Judaism, supports full access for all those who need abortions to the entire spectrum of reproductive health care and opposes all efforts by governmental, private entities, or individuals to limit or dismantle such access." But it's not just the Reform and the conservative movements. The Reconstructionist movement writes, "Regardless of the court's ultimate decision, the Reconstructionist Rabbinical Association and Reconstructing Judaism remain steadfastly committed to advocating for reproductive freedom and the principle that abortion care is medical care and a basic human right." But it's not just Reform, conservative, and Reconstructionist Judaism. The Orthodox Union issued a statement saying an abortion may be authorized, if not mandated, by halakha, by Jewish law, and should be available to all women irrespective of their economic status. The statement continues, "Legislation and court rulings, federally or in any state, that absolutely ban abortion without regard for the health of the mother would literally limit our ability as Jews to live our lives in accordance with our responsibility to preserve life." Reform, conservative, Reconstruction, Orthodox Judaism, the four largest movements in this country, they all have different rationales, different approaches, but they all have the same conclusion. Abortion must remain legal. These statements were all made within a day of the news of the leaked opinion. The timing is significant because it demonstrates just how clear the positions are. There was no need for any of these movements to spend any time debating on a response or gathering study committees to help articulate one. Abortion must remain legal in this country. That is the conclusion, and it was said by every major denomination within a day. And it's not just Reform, conservative, Reconstruction, and Orthodox Judaism or American Judaism who have come to this conclusion. Israeli Health Minister Nitzan Horowitz said, "The right of a woman to her body is hers and hers alone. If the Supreme Court sends the leadership of the free world back 50 years, it would be a fatal blow to human rights." Meanwhile, he continues, "Israel is moving forward and updating the antiquated procedures in the health ministry that were initially intended to prevent women from choosing. We are putting the decision in their hands." Some context there if you're unfamiliar. In Israel, a woman must apply before a committee in order to be approved for an abortion. 98% of requests in these committees are approved. 98%. But as Horowitz notes, this antiquated procedure needs to be updated, and that is to say, even if it's almost always granted in Israel, it is an affront to a person's dignity to make them ask permission. Every Jewish denomination, and the only Jewish country in the world, supports abortion. Does that mean that every Jew feels that way? Of course not. But this is as close to a consensus on a Jewish position as we can ever hope to reach, and that consensus is clear. Women must have access to abortion care. Does that mean that every denomination has the same rationale and approaches abortion from the same set of values? Again, of course not. So how is it that we all came to the same conclusion? I suspect it is because Judaism is a religion that requires and demands nuance. Very little is always allowed or always forbidden. Laws that seek to eliminate an individual's discretion or a religious community's discretion and its autonomy are anathema to Jewish thinking. They are not Jewish. I could cite biblical texts that appear to sanction abortion, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to do it because it is just as easy to cite texts that appear to condemn it. The Jewish Bible is a big book. The truth is, you can make it say just about anything that you want. There is one thing I need to share before I wrap this up. Over the last week and a half, my Facebook feed has been filled with stories of women who have shared their abortion stories. I don't know how it feels to post a story like that. Maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe it's cathartic. Maybe it's terrifying. Maybe it's a little of all of that. But for those who have shared with the world what really isn't the world's business, I commend you. I applaud you. And for those contemplating whether to share, while it is nobody's business, if you decide that you are going to, know that you'll get a little like from me for whatever that's worth. And for those that have a story to share but don't want to put it out for the entire world to read, know that you can talk to me or any of our clergy, and we are here to listen, not to judge. If you don't like what I've shared tonight, that's okay. But just know it's not really me that you are taking issue with. Most of what I have read are verbatim quotes of official statements from every major Jewish denomination in this country who come to the same conclusion, that abortion must remain legal in this country. To be able to say that, to stand up here, that is not a political statement. That is a Jewish statement. If and when the state of Tennessee makes abortion illegal, it will undoubtedly be under the pretext of protecting the rights and furthering the values of religious people. Just remember, when they're talking about religious people, they're not talking about Jews.